Hello, and welcome back to Articulate with Steve McJones. I'm going to try to get this in before Audacity crashes for the 15th time. I am having some serious technical difficulties that I know you don't care about, but it's really annoying to me right now. So, anyways, welcome back. I'm so sorry. How are you? You okay? You doing alright? I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking. This is a check-in episode we're doing here. You know, not only for me, but for you as well. I know that these ones aren't typically the most interesting or popular or, whatever, accessible, I guess. But they're more for me, and I know that some people do enjoy knowing where I am, what I'm doing, how I'm feeling, all that sort of stuff, even if it's only like 8 people. So, I mentioned in the last episode in gratitude how I just moved to Collingswood, and I'm in New Jersey for this new job, which I'll get to. But, I just realize what I'm like in new environments, and when I'm in a new place like this and learning and doing all this, it's like processing. I have to process everything, and I become very, very introverted, and I just take things in. So I guess my creative process is more about, understanding what's going on around me, and then kind of turning that into something. And also, I don't know anybody around here, so I don't have anybody really to interview yet. I have met some cool people, which I'll get into as well, but for the most part, not anybody. To ask somebody to get to be on my podcast is just kind of a weird. Hey, you want to be on my? Hey, it's like, hey, you got games on your phone? It's like, hey, you want to be on my podcast? It's cool. But yeah, no, there's that, and then also, like I said, the creativity thing where I'm still creative in a way, but I'm just very internal about everything. I need to process it, and it's more of an ongoing creativity as opposed to a combined effort of creation, I guess, which is weird, but I mean, you'll understand as I pump out more things. But it's cool because, that's pattern recognition. Before, if I were in a new environment, I'd get all quiet and everything, and I'd be like, what's wrong with me? Did I lose it? Did I forget how to talk? Like, is my social anxiety back? It's something like that. So I'm glad that I've gotten to this point where I can move to a new place like this and all these new people and be able to understand what's going on internally. What's interesting about this period for me is that I found out that when I'm in a period like this, like a transitional period, I'm pretty much open to just all different types of new content and movies and music, basically. Like, I have all these movies on this list that are like kind of downloaded on my computer that typically I'll go into and look at and be like, yeah, I don't want to watch something that I've never heard of before. I don't know if it's good. I like good movies. I want to watch good movies typically. So I'll go for the ones that I know are typically like, it has like an actor that I like, or it's gone up for an award, or, whatever. Things that, like I said, I want to know that it's a good movie typically. But while I've been out here, it happened before as well when I was in a similar transitional period. But I'm just open to just like, well, throw that on. Like I watched Psycho for the first time, which I knew it was good, but I know myself I don't like older movies as much like that. The Alfred Hitchcock version, obviously, of Psycho, not the Vince Vaughn version, but it's it's pretty cool. It was an alright movie. This isn't a movie review, but the point is I've been listening to like new music and watching new movies, and it's almost because I'm so infatuated with the actual environment and everything that's going on. It's kind of hard for me to completely focus on a movie or new music. So it's almost, it's not as entrancing as when I get really into a movie, unfortunately. Well, sometimes movies, even in this phase, movies have pulled me in. But like with music, it's like I don't fully listen to the music because I got all this new stuff to think about, or like a new job, new people, where am I going to get groceries, all that sort of stuff. And so I just throw on the music, and it's almost background music, but you get to be like, oh, yeah, I forgot about this, or like, oh, this is a good song, or, stuff like that. It's good for that period, at least for me. Maybe that's something you could look into for yourself as well, because I know everybody wants to get new content and try new things and stuff like that for the most part. So figure out a good time in your life where you realize that you're in a state where you are open to those ideas. Anyways, to let you know where I am, I just did want to say, like, I'm in Collingswood, New Jersey, like, and it's good. I want to say I'm in Collingswood, New Jersey, and it's good. I'm happy. It feels good, which is weird. And it's not like I'm on cloud nine. Let me give you some context, right? Let's say March, April of last year, right? Pandemic has just hit. I'm in Kroger. Weezer has canceled Van Weezer. It is the pitfall of my entire life. I am in a bad place working on these essays that nobody should have to do online and all these projects and stuff. Fast forward, I released this checkpoint episode called Deal With It, where I think I released that one in July. And the Deal With It episode was interesting because, well, the checkpoint episodes are all cool to go back, at least for me, to see like the growth, because the first one started with COVID check-in, and I was like kind of figuring out, I had this whole idea of getting to New York and doing this whole thing and like what was going to happen and getting into the real life or whatever. And then the next check-in, to Deal With It episode, I was on like a very small high, but that like high was like the first time I had gotten out of a low for the first time in forever. And I was getting into Deal With It, which is a great song. But it was like just that little spark of hopefulness got me like so excited. And it was great. It was awesome. Yeah, and that was really good. I was still pretty low back then. But, it was a good... Okay, there's an upswing coming on, and then I did another checkpoint episode while I was in Athens again for the billionth time in my life. This is one of the first times in my life that I haven't spawned in Athens, actually, which is cool. Spawning in Athens is always a weird place to spawn, but so I spawned in New Jersey this morning. It was awesome. But yeah, the last check-in episode was kind of realizing the growth of my mindset that happened over the past year and a half before that, and being able to recognize those patterns, which again, I referenced just a bit ago, but now, like, that is almost like a knee-jerk reaction for me to recognize these patterns now, which before it was like the first time of me recognizing this pattern. So it was like, it's pretty cool to see that progression. But yeah, and so I had finally, like, through that whole time, like, even on that last check-in, I was in a happier place because I wasn't doing my schoolwork anymore, but it was still kind of anxiety-filled and a little depression here and there. But that's not the point. The point is, then I was signed up for this job in New Jersey, and it was like a for sure thing. Like, the New York thing, I was pretty tentative on anyways, originally, back in the day. But this New Jersey thing, it was like, dude, it's an offer. It's a real job. You know when it's a boring job, that it's for sure, like, locked in, because nobody's going to stop you from getting that boring job. They're like, oh, yeah, no, why do we care? Yeah, you can have it. Nobody else wants that job, which I'll get into in a little bit. But, yeah, so it was locked in, and I was like, yo, this is about to be lit. I was finishing up my internship at the OUN, and I was still in Athens, and I was able to enjoy everything, and I met all these new people that were really cool. I was getting a lot of good podcasts in, actually. I personally think that's some of the golden age for my podcast era, but, I'm only not even 2 years in, so who knows? But that was a really good period for me, and I knew I was going to have this whole month coming up, where this whole month I just had nothing to do because I was done with school. I wasn't going to have to make another college payment, sign up for classes, any of that stuff. And I was going to go to New Jersey in the next month. And so basically the only task I had was to find a place to live. And, you deal with that as it comes. But so I was over that month period, it was weird because I was still riding the high. But I was also getting really bored being back at home just for a month. I mean, it's cool being home and seeing all your friends and being close with your friends and all that sort of stuff. But then you just get into the same routines. I probably talked about this before, but you get into the same routines, and like I wasn't even running or working out at all as much, not as much as I would have liked, but not even like a little bit. It was like barely a little bit. And I mean, that's always, you want to feel productive. You want to feel like you're doing things. So, like, I don't even remember which podcast episodes came out in that era. But, I'm not trying to discount any people that I've had on the podcast, but it just stood out to me that they weren't feeling as good. So, anyways, I come up to Athens, or no, anyways, thank God I'm not back at Athens, but anyways, I come up to New Jersey to find a place to live, and dude, everything is like, yo, this is all new, this is crazy, this is, oh my gosh, this is so cool, meeting all these cool people, doing all these cool things, starting this new job, probably not going to be as cool, but we'll see. And it's like, I'm here for 2 weeks before I even start the job. I meet all these cool people, I get settled into this new place. This new place is tight. I'm setting up my bed, my desk, everything, getting all that shit going. And then and then Weezer finally announces that they're coming out with a new album that wasn't even announced ever before. And it's supposed to be, they recorded it at like Abbey Road. That's not, again, it's not the point of this whole thing, but the point is the hype behind this album for me is insane. And then I hit last Thursday. Last Thursday, the single comes out. I've been at work for 4 days, and single's alright. I had a very terrible night's sleep waiting for that single. I wasn't even waiting for the single, but I woke up at like 2:30. Went to bed at like 11, woke up at 2:30. The single was out, and I was like, well, like I couldn't get back to sleep, and there's a point where when you know you can't get back to sleep, you're not going to get back to sleep, so you might as well just get up and do something. So I listened to it, and it was just extremely underwhelming. And I don't know why I was expecting Weezer to release a not Weezer song. Like, I was hoping it would release like a... I'm not saying it's not good. I like the song, okay? It's a good song, especially as a Weezer fan, but it's not different, not as different as I was hoping. So it's, I don't know, it's very sobering for me to have that shitty night's sleep and then to have like that high build up just kind of come back to reality. And I think that was like a good day for me to kind of realize, okay, this isn't, I was on cloud nine for like the past few weeks, just being in this new place, meeting all these cool people. And now that was a very sobering moment for me to kind of come back and be like, okay, well, I still have a job. It's going to have different stressors. I'm still going to have a roommate that we're going to have disagreements on. Still going to have things that I don't like with music and movies and people and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't like this new place was going to be heaven. But I don't know. Sometimes you work it up in your mind. Not even that, like I was on that gratitude kick where it's just I was very thankful. It's not like I was thinking that things weren't going to come back down, but you live so much. The point of life is to live in the present. And so I was very in the present during that gratitude era, and it was good. I really liked it. I don't regret being on cloud nine, but when reality smacks you in the face, it's like, oh yeah, here it is. And so now here I am back into this real life situation that I'm living in, and I'm cool with it. I mean, it's not like I came down back to depression and anxiety and back to zero, but I definitely not up there anymore. So yeah, now I'm here, and there's still like cool parts to this new reality that I'm in. It's the new adult life that we've all... I mean, in college, you're always prefaced with, yeah, you're doing all this to get to this point where you're going to work like a 40-hour-a-week job plus. Well, I was in hospitality, so I was thinking I'm going to have to work like 60, 70 hours a week, basically, this whole thing. And so being here, you're actually in it. You're in that, okay, well, I don't have to do anything after work, technically. And I have this set schedule for the week. Like, I know specifically that I'm going to work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So I can actually plan things around that, as opposed to being in college where you're like, well, I have a class like at 1 hour this day, a couple hours the other day, probably going to hit the bars these days. Well, I don't know. Could happen. Who knows? It's just very wishy-washy up until this point. And so now that I'm here, it's actually pretty cool to be able to be like, all right, so I'm going to work 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. with a lunch break. During my lunch break, I'm going to go get coffee or make myself food. After work, I'm going to work out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Right now, I'm still in the training phases. And for the first 3 weeks of my job, I have to like study after work and everything. So my routine hasn't fully been made quite yet and set in stone. But I mean, it's cool to even have that and know, like I said, after work, I get to work out, and then I'm going to eat, and then I'm going to study again for a little bit more or something like that. Whereas after I'm done with all that stuff, I get to be like, all right, after work, I'm going to work out, I'm going to eat, and then I'm going to go to Philadelphia and do stand-up. Or I'm going to sit here, I'm going to write this script, I'm going to work on this, I'm going to read this book for a certain amount of time. You know, it's really cool because it's a reliable thing that you're going to be able to get to do. Like, that was what was so exciting about the real world to me. That was so enticing, to not have all this responsibility that I feel like it just, like, the responsibility of college to get all your classes done, to know that you're always procrastinating, to know that you're gonna have like a midterm, you're gonna have a final, and you're gonna, you know, you also are like, well, I need to be making money too, so I need to have a part-time job. It's just a whole thing, and I'm so glad to be done with that. If you know me, you know that I was not a fan of college at all. And good for you if you are. Like, really, seriously, I wish I could have enjoyed it more, but, you know, that's me. So I'm glad to be up here. And there was one thing that I actually noticed. I had to go pick up a thing from FedEx before, and I was on the highway on like the turnpike in Philadelphia just to go pick up a FedEx thing during rush hour, which is extremely intense. I don't know if you know this or not. And it's intense in a way that I didn't realize. It was like, okay, all these cars are here, everybody's trying to get home. It's fast-paced, but then you get on the highway, and it's slow, like, because nobody's moving, because there's so many people, everything kind of goes slower. You gotta, like, take your turns, get off on the exit, make sure you're close, or speed up on the left, kind of thing. You know how to drive. I would hope so. But it was a very, you did feel almost like an energy while you're out there, and it felt it was almost, and it wasn't sobering in the same way. It was almost exciting to me because it was like, yo, all this energy is like, these are all adult people, and they all assume that I'm another adult person, as opposed to everybody looking at you as like a college kid or like a hometown kid or a townie or whatever. It's like all of these people are like coming home from work. Like, I went to pick up my FedEx thing, and there was another woman in there picking up her FedEx thing, and she's dressed in scrubs because she just got off work doing her scrub thing. But it was cool, and this is a very, very hot take, but traffic, not that bad. Given that, A, the more the merrier, and B, most people don't like to talk to strangers, then C, traffic is a pretty good situation to be in, because you're surrounded by all these people, again, who are going through the same thing, getting off of work, going somewhere, getting excited to do their thing that they do after work, because nobody likes work, but they like their free time. And so you're all in it together, sitting there. You're in your own car with your own comfortable AC, temperature, whatever. If you have AC, I don't, but you get to play your own music or your own podcast. Yeah, you have to sit around for a while in like a smoke-filled, gassy environment, which is kind of gross, but you know, it's really kind of like a big connection thing. I don't know. It's weird. If you ask somebody about what traffic feels like, I think they'll tell you probably not the same thing in such a positive light, but a similar thing with like the energy. You just kind of feel it, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so my job is it's mortgage loan sales, and I say this joke all the time, but I think it's possibly the most boring combination of words you could throw together from the perspective of anybody who's not interested in mortgages at all, which is most people, I would hope. Mortgage loan sales. It's just disgusting. But actually, so the first 3 weeks, like I was telling you, is like me learning everything that you need to know about this industry, which is also cool because it's a classroom setting. And all these college kids are going to school and paying for it. I can just sit here on my asshole, listening and learning all this stuff with only a 3-week course. It's not a semester course. It's a 3-week course to take this test, and then I get to start this job. And yeah, it is mortgages, which is, again, probably, really, it's just mortgages. Ugh. But they should rename mortgages because they're really not that boring. Like I said, there is a lot of dry stuff, but first of all, there was like the mortgage crisis, which happened like 10 years ago. Like, I'm listening to this trainer. He's like, yeah, I actually had a friend who was affected by this. It was like, there was this huge blowout of economy, and one of the biggest things that's ever happened, there was a recession, the Great Recession. It was like, and it happened within the last 10 years. So you get to see all the laws and everything created because of that thing that happened 10 years ago. And he's like, yeah, my friend was actually able to do this because of this. And he has direct references, and he lived through it himself. And we lived through it, but I wasn't really conscious for it. But to be that close to something that you're learning about is pretty cool. It's almost like if you're learning about, like, taking a history lesson and then being like, yeah, that happened while you were alive. It's like, yo, that's wild. Which I guess is kind of an interesting concept, because as you get older, you don't take history classes anymore. But the kids actually taking history right now are probably learning about events that we're actually aware of. Like, in 10 years, I'm not going to be taking a history class, but in 10 years, there's going to be a 12-year-old learning about coronavirus. Weird. Anyways, also, mortgages, again, pretty wild. There's the primary market. I'm not gonna give you a whole lesson on mortgages. I'm gonna just give you like a little snippet. But what I think is cool is there's the primary market, where it's you. There's this person, right? An individual. You have to specifically define this individual is looking to buy a loan for a house. This guy wants to buy a house, basically, right? And he goes to this one guy who's the loan officer, the salesperson of the mortgages. He's like, yo, I want to buy a house. And between them two, it's like, all right, here, take this loan. You qualify for it. Yeah, go ahead, take the loan. That's the primary market. That's like, all right, cool. This guy, I just got to buy this loan, and I got to buy this house. Dope. But what's crazy is there's an entire secondary market. There's like, so that guy buys that loan, right? And then that loan is bought by this company that has money. It's like the lender, basically. They're like, yeah, here's this, I'm lending you this money. But the lender, so it's not even between the salesperson and the dude. The salesperson is the spokesperson for an entire process behind them, an entire company behind them that loans these monies. And they're like, okay, yeah, we'll do this for you. And they give them the loan, right? But then that loan is for 30 years down the line. They're not getting that money back for 30 years because it's a 30-year loan or 15-year loan or whatever you want to do. But it's a long time before they're going to get that money. So how are they going to loan anybody else money if they're not getting back that money real quick? You know what they do? There's these Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac fellas who are government-sponsored enterprises that was made after the Great Depression that use capital to buy these. They buy them from the lenders. They're like, oh yeah, we'll buy that loan from you. Here, yeah. And so what they do is they buy all these loans, and then they bundle up a bunch of loans that are saying there's riskier loans for people who don't have as good credit, and then there's solid loans for people who are in good financial situations, right? And they buy all these loans, any type of loan. It can be for any different type, poor people, rich people, bougie people, all this sort of stuff. They buy all these different types of loans. They bundle the ones that are similar together, and then they open up like a stock on them. They're called mortgage-backed securities. And then people can buy little bonds, basically, that they think are government-sponsored, and just put money on mortgages that people are paying back in the moment, which is crazy. You could be somebody who's going to buy a house, and you purchase a mortgage, and then you also put money towards a mortgage-backed security. You could have just a little share of your house. You could, I don't know. I think that whole thing is insane. Just the levels and layers, because nobody actually has any of this money. It's weird. I don't know who owns what at this point, but I guess I'm still learning, right? Anyways, that was my little rundown of the mortgage loan process that I'm learning. And I've definitely made it sound way more interesting than any of you would probably find interesting. So you're welcome for that. But that's what I thought was cool about it. So yeah, that's been pretty interesting, and like doing the whole Zoom meeting classroom style thing is new for me, which I think is pretty fun as well. Not as cool as in class, like in person in class, but it's alright. But I still have been meeting some cool people. I went to open up a bank account at PNC, and I met this guy who's a banker who I talked to him. He's like probably a couple years older than me, but he opened my bank account, but we were talking, and he just kept asking questions, just about me. He's a very curious fellow. And it's not like I push my podcast or any of my creative endeavors on people, but he's like, yeah, so, like, what are you doing here? I'm like, well, I'm doing this thing. He's like, yeah, so, like, but what's the long-term thing? I'm like, well, probably keep doing that and figure out where that goes, the mortgage thing. But I'm also trying to do stand-up. And he's like, oh, really? And he was, like, asking all these questions. Oh, yeah, I love doing creative stuff like that. He was, like, talking about happiness and, like, what makes him happy. And we talked for, like, an hour and a half just about about life stuff. He's going to start journaling now. Like, he showed me, he asked me to send me the British rap song that I did. And he listened to all this British rap that I told him, and he listened to the thing, and he said it was Flames. Of course it is Flames, check it out. But he also sent me back, like, his video that he did, which I didn't know he had. But yeah, he had a song called, like, Fed Up by YPQ. You can probably look it up. Shout out YPQ, Young Poppy Quincy. His name is Quincy. And he's just, like, a super cool guy. I was, like, a banger, just out of nowhere. And then I went to get my haircut, which was a fire haircut, by the way, by a fella by the name of, I don't know if you've heard of him, Jeffrey Money. It's his legal name, his family name. He didn't switch his name. His family passed down the name Money as their last name. Jeffrey Money. And he was, like, again, such a cool guy. He owns his own little barbershop. It's him and one other chair in there that he rents out to another dude. But it's his own, like, he has all these personality, like, portraits, pictures, posters, all this cool, all the P's up on the wall, and, like, a couch in there that he chills, and he's trying to get, like, a studio set up in there, and he was playing his music for me too. And yeah, when I left, he was just like, yeah, man, like, come back anytime for a haircut, but if you just want to chill too, like, come on, like, I want to hang out. I'm like, all right, sweet. So the people around here are just, like, super cool, super open, and I know not everybody's like that, but I've been lucky to meet the ones that are cool. So I'm just having a good time with all that. Yeah, and I'm hoping to bring you some of these interesting characters soon as guests, which would be exciting. And, I think that's what's important in that message is that, like, the sense of community, going back to these barbers or going back to this guy as my banker is, like, that's the tie that, like, that's why they're my potential friends, because I'm gonna have to see them in the future anyways. But also, you can create your own friends in that way doing something else. Like, I go to this every Saturday now. I found them while I was staring at the Airbnb while I was trying to find a place here, but it's a small little, like, Jack's donuts and coffee place where they have, like, BLTs and all that sort of stuff. But it's a very small, you walk in, it's one big counter with seats at it, and I just found, like, there's a cool server woman that works there, Natasha. She's, like, a feisty Latino woman, but she's cool. I fuck, but she's cool. No, she is a cool, spicy Latino woman, and she serves a mean coffee and other stuff. But she really is cool, and she showed interest in me. Like, I came in with a book just originally because I wanted to go read somewhere, and she's like, oh, like, that's cool, what's that book? She asked me about it, and then the next time I came in, she was like, yeah, actually, like, look into it a little bit, so she's engaged, and she was cool, so it kept me coming back while I was staying at the Airbnb, and now I just go there every Saturday, and they all look forward to having me come there. And personally, it's one of my favorite parts of the week because I don't have a lot going on yet. Like, I haven't completely developed a community, but just going there like one or two times during the week before, and like now once a week now, they're expecting me and they know me a little bit more each time. And I think that's really important in developing some sort of sense of community, especially in a new place like this. So I'm glad to be able to do that for now and be able to develop these ideas and things while I'm in this place of transition. So I think I'm about finished up. I did want to run some ideas by my solo listeners. I talked about it with a couple of my friends recently, but there's this thing called Patreon, which I don't really know if I buy into the idea of it, just because like I hate asking you guys for money. Like, I even did this whole t-shirt thing where I thought I was going to buy all these t-shirts, but I don't want to make people pay for t-shirts. It's a whole thing. But there's this thing called Patreon where, I still upload my podcasts on everything and promote it through Instagram or whatnot. But on Patreon, I could do, extra little tidbits, and which I have kind of been getting into. I could do little poems or stories. Like the gratitude thing would be a good idea of something that I could do for people. You can still follow me on Patreon, and the podcast gets posted there. But also, people who really like me and follow me on there are able to donate money to me in some form that they think is respectable or that they want to, which I think would be cool because I honestly do pay $20 a month for this whole thing to keep it set up. And I mean, I do want to develop it even farther than where it's been. I want to keep pursuing this as not only a hobby, but something that maybe could be a form of income. I don't know. I really don't care about it like that. But if that's like the next stage of growth, then like that's where I want to be. So kind of want to run that by you. There's Q&As. I was also had this idea for like a podcast as of like a book club thing. So I assign a book. But like I started out and I pick a book, and then I have any of my followers like read it and listen to it, and then record like a little 5-10 minute thing about the book, like a review or just like your ideas or a lens you saw it through, or kind of evaluate it however you want to. Send it into me, and I clip all these things together, and that's boom, like that's an episode right there. I could do that like every month and get all these different people, like a podcast book club thing, which would be weird, but it would also keep me reading, and I think it would be a cool form of collaboration, which I think is probably the next form of where media is going. Collaboration is a big thing with the development of technology and the human brain. So yeah, let me know if you're listening to this, if you think that'd be something you'd be interested in, sort of, or don't. I might just start it and then see kind of what happens. But I'm just kind of thinking out loud with these ideas, because either way, I'm gonna have to get creative out here. Like I said, I don't have a lot of people that I know yet. I'm gonna have to get creative with what I'm doing so I can keep making these episodes for y'all. And there is gonna be some different content that I'm gonna be having in these next few weeks for sure, until I establish more of who I am out here. So like the gratitude episode was pretty different. So I guess you can look forward to that for now. Look forward to me making moves, continuing. I'm not gonna stop. Thought about stopping. I'm not gonna stop. I'm never gonna stop. Like I said, with the interview with Thread Magazine, I wouldn't stop unless they had an AI developed that would continue my content. So, yeah, I do always, as always, appreciate y'all listening to me. And if you have any suggestions or remarks or anything, please let me know. Anyways, thanks for listening. I love you. Hey, man. Okay, bye. Holy shit, there's no Weezer this week.